Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 40th call of the Amazon Investor Coalition. This is a weekly call and podcast series dedicated to advancing forest-friendly economic development across the Amazon region of South America. And this week, we're going to focus on the work of Beto Bina, and we're going to talk about the fashion industry and how it influences the Amazon or could influence the Amazon. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Beto, tell us about you. Tell us a little bit about your life before Farm.
Sure, Jonah. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, everyone. My name is Beto Bina from Brazil, and my early career was always as a strategist in the creative industry. My mom is an artist, my dad is a designer, but I always been super connected with nature. So my dad used to work for FUNAI, which is the federal organization that works with indigenous communities in Brazil. So I always been super connected with the Amazon nature. I'm a surfer since forever. And then I used to work as a strategist, mostly in advertising agencies. I lived in New York for 4 years. And as all the entrepreneurship stories goes, I was like in a career that I always dreamed. I was a strategy director in the largest digital agency in New York, but inside I was like super depressed. So I had to do something. So I did Farm 6 years ago.
Excellent. Tell us, what is Farm?
Farm is not a place. It's an energy. No, I'm just kidding. Farm is a business, a consultancy. So back in the day, I started to research what I really wanted to do, and I got obsessed about agroforestry. Right now, everybody's calling it regenerative agriculture, but agroforestry for me was this notion of using technology as an analogy, but trying to implement that into nature. So when you have technology, you have some logic processing. When you look at when you're programming or developing something, you look to the logic of if this happened, then something else happens. If this, then that. So you apply that to nature using agroforestry, always in two axes. One is the horizontal axis, which is the succession of species, and the vertical axis, which is pretty much sun and shade, and how to integrate all these plants into this full ecosystem. So I fell in love of that, trying to design nature. On the other hand, I was looking on how can I have materials from nature, from the system, that could also tell a story, that could have this value added. Because if I just like producing commodities, just like food, for example, I didn't have like a competitive effort, or couldn't have like a strong value for people to pay a little bit more because of all these beautiful stories. So I got into the fashion industry and the natural fibers, and I also got obsessed about it. So it was two big obsessions, especially because natural fibers is part of our existence, is so intimate, always connected with us, tell a lot about culture. There's a lot of craftsmanship involved. So many elements that I started to get super curious. And also one major data point I was looking at, that 85% of all the fibers in the market are what we call toxic, which comes either from oil industry, like polyester, acrylic, nylon, or from monoculture of cotton, which is a crop that uses one of the most, they use insecticides and other chemical fertilizers. So 85% was, I would say, toxic. At the same time, all the major brands like Inditex, H&M, they were looking to connect it with sustainable development goals, looking to next 10 years to have like 100% responsible fibers. So moving from 85% toxic, trying to have 100% responsible fibers. So that was a huge business opportunity for us. So I connected agroforestry and cotton, and we developed this concept called textile agroforestry, which is pretty much planting, thank you, pretty much planting organic cotton and natural fibers using agroforestry system like this one in my background. Jonah, let me know if I'm talking too much, okay?
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
Although feel free to, do something wild, turn around in a circle, anything like that, just to increase the entertainment value.
Okay.
Just playing around. Okay, next question. Tell us a little bit about what you do for Veja, and what is Veja?
Veja is a French-Brazilian sneakers company. It has been in the market for 15 years globally. We sell Veja in over 60 countries now. And some of you probably know. Can you do just just raise your hand if you know Veja, the ones you have video on. Great. So majority of people knows Veja. In Brazil is known as Vert, but Brazil is a small market, represent less than 5% of the sneakers company. Thank you, Leonardo. and Veja, since the beginning, the core was not to do what the average fashion brand does, or especially when it goes to the shoe market, which is injecting money into marketing or influencers to generate awareness about the brand and then sell the product later. Veja never did publicity, never did ads, never paid any influencer. All the money goes to the supply chain. So we develop, work with organic cotton in the northeast of Brazil, with wire rubber. Our leather is super special. We still, I think we use leather. We respect a lot of vegan consumers that disagree with that, but our leather is super special as well. We go deep into the supply chain of recycled PET. So all this supply chain, we go as deep as possible, even buying directly from the raw material and then selling to the industry. So the idea is to develop a great product with a great story and let people tell this story instead of doing the opposite, making like a super cheaper, inexpensive product and putting a lot of marketing on it. So it's a little bit different. There's a lot of other things about Veja. I will stop now and then can ask questions later.
Great. So let's get into the rubber soles of these shoes.
Okay.
I understand the story of rubber is one of the prime examples of biopiracy, the extraction, illegal extraction of a piece of biodiversity that creates wealth elsewhere, but that doesn't benefit local communities. There was this Brit named Henry Wickham, and he was under the employ of Kew Gardens in London. And in 1876, he smuggled some rubber seeds out of the country, and that led to the eventual demise of the Brazilian rubber industry. But there may be a future rubber industry. Beto, tell us about native rubber. What is it and what is it used for?
So native rubber, as the name says, is native from the Amazonian biome. Because you can have natural rubber, natural latex, but it's coming from the rubber trees that could be planted everywhere in the world. Right now, one of the largest producers is in Southeast Asia. Native rubber or wild rubber is the one that you have the rubber trees growing naturally inside the forest. So just to give an idea, on average, you find only one rubber tree per hectare. And then the seringueiros, like you call it, or this family of producers, they walk through these trails and they tap, or they use a tool to tap these trees and extract the latex of around 100 trees every time they go walking through the trail. So it's a really, really hard work, but it's so beautiful because you are doing extractivism, but it's a responsible extractivism because you're generating this raw material from this bioeconomy that's keeping a standing forest. And that's super important because when you have native rubber, all the ecosystem is intact. All the ecosystem services is still there. So it's not just about carbon, it's about biodiversity, water availability, scenic beauty. It's about heritage of the people that live there. So all these things is still intact when you have native rubber. Moving to the natural rubber is natural, it's not synthetic, which is good. but most of the natural rubber is done using monoculture. So you're planting only one species. So you are not actually diversifying or bringing all this biodiversity and all this cultural legacy that these people has and everything that's related with the forest. One thing that you say internally at Veja is we want all our supply chain to be a place where we can do a picnic with our friends or your family. So when you have a monoculture of eucalyptus or a monoculture of cotton, that's not such a good place to be because it's almost like a desert, right? When you see like the monoculture of cotton, even though it's organic cotton, but it's not a good place to be. So natural rubber has this problem of doing as a monoculture. There's alternatives to do using regenerative systems or agroforestry system. I can explain a little bit more about agroforestry, John, if you want later, but now, okay, just organize the whole spectrum. And then you have the least good or the worst, which is the synthetic rubber, right? It's coming from the oil industry, is one of the most polluting industry in the world. 99% of all the shoes you see out there, they are made with synthetic rubber. So we're trying to move to have as much as bio-based materials into our shoe. So every shoe, every Veja shoe has some percentage of native rubber from 10 to 30%. In the sole, you also use another element and another materials. You call it silica or cargas. Sometimes it's just a powder, but you use to doing the sole is like it's like making a bread, right? You mix a lot of ingredients and then mix them together to do the sole. So in our sole have from 10 to 30% native rubber. We use rice dust as well, castor oil, in some ones banana oil, and are also using the dust or the waste from the nuts, Brazilian nuts industry. So trying to put as much as possible bio-based or renewable materials into our shoes. Our latest running shoes, it's almost 60% bio-based or renewable materials, which is for the category of running. It's a really remarkable number to have. Should I move to agroforestry?
Go for it.
Just so everyone's understand, and I'm super passionate about agroforestry, but the idea is to integrate forest or perennial trees or trees into agriculture. Most of the plantations we see are monoculture. Some plantations are rotational, which one season they plant cotton, the other season they plant soybeans, and so on. And sometimes it's consortium, so you play like big roles of a diversification. All of these practices, they are degrading soil, especially if they are using chemicals, they are using GMO seeds, so they're really hard for the soil. So they'll never be regenerative because they are degrading the quality of the soil. At some point, that soil is not useful anymore, so you need to move to another plot, deforest some plot, and it goes. So the agroforestry and regenerative system, you have these alleys of perennial trees that you plant in between your cash crop, your major crop, or other crop you like to plant. When you plant trees, you have this bond of sucking carbon. It's super important for sequestering carbon. That's one of the most important things because carbon is right now the only unique metric that you can dialogue with the financial market. So it's the only one who can put dollars behind. So it's important to look at carbon. A lot of brands got obsessed about carbon, but you cannot neglect other units, other services that nature provides. So biodiversity is another one. So if you have trees, you have a lot more insects and a lot more of birds. So it was proven that when you have an agroforestry and you have a coffee plantation using agroforestry, the birds eats a pest that is an insect that eats the coffee. The same for cotton. We have something, we call it bicudo, which is the most important and the most damaged pests for organic cotton, and we have more trees, we have more birds. These birds eat the pest. We need to use less of biological inputs. You lose less of your production. So there's so many different types of agroforestry. What they are doing mostly in Acre, where I work, is the state more on west of Brazil. It's super wet. It's the middle of the Amazon. It's also working with rubber trees using agroforestry. So they also plant cacao, Brazilian nuts. Sorry guys, I say in Portuguese, but ingá, jatobá. They plant all the others, fruits and nuts or oil. They are be able to have these different revenue streams for the families. That's super important. Not just sell one thing, but have like a bucket of different revenue streams, so these families are able to have a decent income and not moving to illegal deforestation activities.
Excellent. Agroforestry has a very bright future globally in the Amazon as well as elsewhere around the world. Let's get back to the fashion industry for a moment. So from what I understand, the fashion industry reaches about $2 trillion a year in annual turnover, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends on the year. But it's also responsible for an estimated 4% of global climate emissions. So transforming it with these green alternatives is a giant market opportunity. One industry helping startups like yours, or one institution, is Fashion for Good. Can you tell us about the organization and how they supported you guys?
Sure. So Fashion for Good is based in Amsterdam, and they basically has three major models, but all of them connected with acceleration of startups. So we were the first on Latin America joining in, and I think the first one on regenerative agriculture as well. And basically they do three things. The mentorship, they connect you with brands, and that's where I met the Veja founders, Francois, which we end up working with them. And the third one is it's basically networking. So there's a lot of other cool startups. Some of them I'm going to talk about later. AgroLoop is one of them I share with Jonah. So pretty much these three. So the mentoring, clients, and networking. And then we move to different stages of acceleration. We did the early stage, and right now we're discussing to maybe move to a scale program or a next stage. Fashion for Good also has a really beautiful museum. If you go in Amsterdam, of course right now it's probably closed, but they have a beautiful museum of materials and like a library of materials actually, and have a store as well. So it's a pretty cool place to be, and also follow them on social networks, as they always posting about new startups, new projects, new technology, connecting mostly fashion and sustainability.
Nice. So let's talk about fiber for a moment. Beyond rubber, fashion depends a lot on fibers to weave new clothes and things like that. And you have been doing a bit of research about fibers in the Amazon. Tell us what you've come up with. Tell us about some of your favorite plants.
There's so many, Jonah. And I think it's fascinating, or maybe the fact that is most crazy is that we don't know what we don't know. So we know maybe 5% or less of the fibers in the Amazon. There's so much biodiversity and so much work needs to be done. And so the research I started to do with Farfarm was trying to find a fiber that we could connect with the industry. Because most of the fibers, and I can talk about them, they have a limit. They are really artisanal fibers. And we don't have technology. All the technology in place right now is just designed for cotton. Everything we do is mostly cotton. But for example, there's a fiber called Jupati, which I found through a friend in Pará. I went to this place, was like, I had to sleep in a boat going to this place. São Sebastião da Boa Vista was the city's name. And this lady did like beautiful artisanal purses with this fiber. It's a palm tree called Jupati. And there's another fiber called Tucum. Tucum fiber, it's from this other palm tree. You might heard about Tucumã. Tucumã, it's an oil, it's pretty amazing oil. Natura has been using for some products. And there's always Tucum, which is a super similar palm tree. They have these huge spikes in the trunk, so it's super high, hard to extract. And basically the leaves of the Tucum, you can take out the cellulosic or this like blue element, and it's a really beautiful, strong fiber. And there's a lot of projects already evolved. The place that is most known is Ipixuna in Amazonas, and they do beautiful work with Tucum fiber. But again, still artisanally. Another fiber is super important is Juta or jute. Jute's not native from the Amazon, it's actually from Japan. It's a type of grass, but grows like for up to 3 meters high. And the cool thing about jute is that it grows by the rivers. So they plant during the beginning of the wet season. So all this jute gets almost like underwater throughout the season and grows really well. And then during the dry season, they harvest the jute. So you don't use irrigation, no chemicals, fertilizer whatsoever. Grows super fast and a super long and strong fiber. This one, they do have a spinner, a gin, and a weaving machine, but they do mostly these big sacks to export coffee and potato. So you see a lot of jute in India as well. So it's a super beautiful fiber, but again, super rustic. If you might have seen maybe some rugs or for home accessory, you see a lot of jute, but it's definitely no good to use in contact with your skin. But if you could work with the technologies and try to sort of like cottonize jute, this could be an amazing fiber.
You want to name one more? Good, go for it.
Yeah, just really quickly, I think like banana or pineapple, all these things are super cool fibers as well. And also using the cellulosic or the biomass from the Amazon to do fibers and alternative for leathers and other types of materials. That's a huge opportunity.
Great. Let's talk about this word, cottonizing, you used. Tell us what it means, and then let's get into these 4 technologies that you educated me about that are invented by the fashion industry, and that if brought to the Amazon could give life to new markets. Let's start. Sure. What does cottonizing mean? And then let's get into AgriLoop.
Yeah. So Jonah, most of these fibers, they are really rustic, strong fibers like the Jupati, especially from palm trees, or they are too short fibers like the Paineta. There's the largest, tallest tree in the Amazon, Samaúma, and it's a type of Paineta. And the Paina, in English, called it Kapok. It's a beautiful fiber, but it's super short. So in the middle, you have a fiber that it's good on the touch, is around 30 millimeters. So it's a longer fiber, which is cotton. And all the ginning machines that extract the seeds from the cotton, the spinning machines that makes the yarns, and the weaving or knitting machines, they're all designed to use cotton. So when I say cottonized, it's trying to get this type of fibers that are not designed or not adapted to the factory or the spinning weaving machines, and try to work them prior in order to use in these large machines. Why is it important to have these large machines, right? You need to have scale. If you really want to get into the fashion market and make an impact, you need to have a scale. All these fibers could be used artisanally. People make beautiful products, especially for the luxury market, but we won't have the impact that we need just working artisanally. So in order to cottonize, you have many different ways to do it. these technologies, each of them use one type of cotonization, but you could use microbiology with enzymes to work on the fibers. We could use like electricity and a shock or some of them has like closed intellectual property. They don't tell you exactly what they do, but they do cotonize. And super important as well, I forgot to mention, there's not hemp in Brazil. Brazil is still not allowed. We're years behind other markets, but I know in China, especially in Nepal, they have hemp and they are also cotonizing hemp, which is super important if you want to use hemp for the fashion industry. Just too important to mention, Jonah, sometimes we see, okay, you have but I have a shirt with hemp. You either, or maybe coconut, or maybe bamboo, all these other fibers, especially bamboo and coconut, they're super hard to extract. So sometimes you need to use caustic soda. You need to use some chemicals to do it. So it's super impactful. Or sometimes you just use the biomass and you put together with other synthetic elements to do a spinning. So it's super hard to use. Or sometimes you just have like 5% of hemp. And then you say, this shirt has hemp, but they don't tell you how much of hemp. So sometimes it's 9 and 5% cotton, it's 5% hemp. And then you think it's a hemp shirt. So it's super important to cotonize these fibers in order to have the impact we're looking for.
Great. So I'm going to ask Beto to walk us through each of these 4 technologies. Then I have one quick question for him, and then I'm going to open it up for questions for everybody else. So real quick, maybe just like a sentence or 2 each, walk us through these technologies. Tell us about AgriLoop.
So I'm going to tell you what I know, Jonah, because for example, AgriLoop, they are amazing, but they have a protected IP. And they don't tell you exactly what they do. But it's basically you use the fiber. For example, if you get banana, you extract the banana fiber. Mostly, there's many types of bananas, but mostly from the trunk. So they get, and you can do that artisanally. We're trying to do that and cotonizing with the enzymes, but they get all these trunks and they put into their machine. And what this machine does, it dissolves all the other biological elements but the fiber, and then what comes out of this, they call it descurtification. I think that's the name. I could be wrong. And then what comes out of this machine is the fiber itself. So if you guys are interested, you can maybe send a link later, but they explain a little bit in the website.
Great.
The next.
Lenzing, tell us about Lenzing. And I posted the links in the chat.
Great. So Lenzing, it's a super large company. It's from Austria and they do viscose. Viscose, basically, it's to getting some cellulosic biomass. You put together with other elements and through extrusion, you press it through a machine that does fiber like smaller than your hair. What Lenzing does differently is that they don't use any chemicals and all the water they reuse into the process. So it's a full circular process. There's a lot of other companies, big companies trying to do viscose with less impact. Important to say that less, it's not necessarily good. So some of them, they say, we use 50% less water, but they're super impactful. So be careful on that. But Lenzing, in my opinion, at least, is the most advanced technology for a viscose or a rayon, super similar process with the least impact possible.
Now tell us about SEF, which is used with hemp, and then natural fiber welding.
Great. So SEF, it's a really cool technology. It's a crazy technology I never heard about before. But what they do, they use mostly hemp fibers, and they use electricity, and they do a huge shock with a high voltage that the hemp fibers, once extracted, they become cotonized. They become similar with cotton. That's the farthest I know about the technology, but you can definitely check them out in the website. And they did and they provided all the hemp fiber for the latest Levi's collection. There's a lot of hemp from these guys, but I think it's super interesting technology because it just use electricity, it doesn't use water, doesn't use any other type of chemical inputs. So it's an interesting technology. And the last one is natural fiber welding. What they do is an alternative for leather. Some people call it vegan leather. We cannot actually call it leather, but because they use bio-based materials. Most of these alternative for leather guys, it's pretty much the same thing. You have a base, which could be organic cotton, could be any other fibers, and you have a coating on the top with this formula. All the products out there, when you hear about this pineapple leather, this is grape leather, this orange leather, they're pretty much using the same thing, which is using PU, polyurethane, which is synthetic, coming from oil, mixed with the biomass from that fruit, that vegetable. So what natural fiber welding does, they develop 100% bio-based or plant-based material. So they use the same base, which could be organic cotton, but on the top, instead of using PU, polyurethane, they use rubber. And we are in touch with them because they really want to use the white rubber, but I should be saying
that. So I want to say one special thing about the fashion industry as a match for the Amazon. If you're trying to take pineapples for the Amazon and sell them, people aren't necessarily going to pay for one pineapple over another just because it comes from the Amazon, but they will for fashion, because fashion is a industry that extends into luxury. It's a place where a markup on the value is part of the culture and part of the industry. So please, those who are interested in asking questions, come off video, raise your hand, put your interest in the chat area. Last question from me, Beto. Tell us a little bit about what you know from the existing global sustainable fashion networks. I've heard of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, the Fashion Pact, the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, and others.
Jonah, well, I think most of these organizations and the fashion agenda, I think it's super important and strategic to join them, because they are taking some directions and some priorities, because there's so many things you could do in fashion, and they're aligning on priorities. So most of them are aligning with the SDGs. So it's super important to have the targets and to understand where you're going and how can you measure success, right? So they're mostly helping on that. But I think there's two main things, maybe three, they're also doing that you should look into. Greatest opportunity in the next few years. One is to focus on biodiversity. So you measure the impact and the success of your supply chain because of biodiversity. The challenge is how to measure biodiversity. It's super hard. If anyone has technologies, clues, any guess, I'd love to hear more about it. But most of the practices and the research I've seen, it's just like an artisanal measurement, getting like a super small sample, counting how many species you see there. So it's super hard. And the most important fact is that we don't know the impact of biodiversity. We know sometimes when you deplete it, right? But you don't know much of the impact. So I would say that moving from carbon to biodiversity, I think that's one important direction. The second one is that 80% of the fashion supply chain are women of color from emerging markets. And they probably getting not a beyond living wage. So we really need to look into the fashion market and not apply the same colonialism that we've been applying to this industry, but trying to understand socially. And when you talk about regenerative fashion, regenerative, super important word right now, right? You need to also regenerate socially. So especially in factories and with these women, one crazy thing about fashion is that every single piece of seams, this was done by a person. there's no much technology that can seam a garment without a hand of probably women of color from emerging market. So looking to social aspect is important. We work a lot of agricultural families. That's also super important because most of the supply chain look into large holder farmers. In Brazil, you see like these crazy rich people. There's 5 families that owns all the farms of cotton in Brazil. Brazil is the 5th largest cotton exported, and most of them is from 5 families. So they're increasing inequality. Our work's pretty much getting these people, they are the victim of inequality. They have like small plots of land, for example, but they are also the solution, because if you build them, if you educate them on new practices, they can develop the most important raw materials with the value added, like you're saying, and so on. And the third one is traceability. So it's really hard to trace. There's so many elements and people involved in this supply chain, from the farm to factory to consumers. So technologies that implement, for example, it's almost like a DNA that can read exactly where it's coming from. Blockchain, it's super important. I see blockchain more as a database. It's super hard how to collect the data, on how to trace them exactly. All the certifications, it's important. I really like, and we join Origins Brazil. They have some type of QR code. They show exactly the community this raw material is coming from. So I'd say traceability, to trust all the supply chain is important. We've seen a lot of people even buying organic certifications, realize it's not organic. Anyway, I would say these 3 strategic pillars is the one that these organizations are helping us to focus.
Great. Our first question is from Alfie. Go for it, Alfie.
Unmute myself. Hi, this has been fascinating. I'm actually talking to a potential brand sponsor for my green superhero IP. It's a major global brand. They have a focus on ocean plastics and creating apparel from ocean plastics. One thing I'm keen on for them to do is go from ocean plastics to fibers from regenerative agriculture. Is there, I mean, do they integrate well, these ocean plastics and plant-based fabrics, do you know, just so that when I have a conversation with them, I can give them kind of a roadmap to integrate these regenerative fibers?
Super interesting question, Alfie. I think there's a few challenges. One of them is, in order to recycle any fabric, if you have a blend, it's super complex. There are some technologies, for example, we have 50% recycled PET from the ocean, beautiful project, 50% cotton, but then this got discarded, and then you want to recycle, you can just downcycle, which is like chopping everything and making like a poor fabric, or you need to find a technology that can separate the polyester than the cotton, so these materials still have the same qualities to be upcycled. So I think that's important. The other important point is that for the ocean, it's super hard to collect this material in scale. There are some companies doing, probably know, but I know Sequal, it's a really cool company from Portugal, and Econil. Econil is from Italy, and they are actually using nylon, which is the material from the fisherman nets. Just reminding me that I just watched a Seaspiracy, the documentary on Netflix. It's dying, so it's definitely an important problem to try to solve. Thank you for the question.
Alfie, you can follow up if you want. Did you have a?
Well, the other thing is as well, as I'm talking to partners around hemp is obviously, you know, in the US is booming. And so we're looking at hemp apparel as well. And so one of the, you mentioned electricity being used, that was kind of a water-free, but what was that process called again? Just so that I can take a note of that.
That's SEF, S-E-F-F.
S-E-F-F, got it, okay.
And
thank you, yeah.
Of course, Alfie.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, because the ocean, because I do know that Seaspiracy, that the ocean plastic issue is, there's a lot of misinformation around it. And that's one thing I know, is that once the plastic's in the ocean, it's pretty much useless anyway. So it's trying to get, and also longer term, they're aiming for like 90% of their apparel to be sustainable. And I don't think Ocean Plastics is going to do it for this brand. So it's great to have them, give them a roadmap to kind of transition from ocean plastics into more just regenerative fiber, because I think that's where the real impact for the company is going to be. So, But I'm gonna ping you on LinkedIn, and I'd love to kind of continue the conversation. There's a lot for me to learn here. So thank you
For
very
sure.
much for that. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Next up is Danielle Rappaport.
Hey, Beto and everyone. Great talk. Thank you. Super interesting work. One comment, one question. The comment, I'd love to chat with you about some of the latest innovations in acoustic monitoring to detect biodiversity in real time and over time, because that really represents a tractable solution to the problem of biodiversity monitoring and really cost effective. So feel free to shoot me a line, or I can follow up with you about that. My question is about how do we wean consumers off this fast fashion problem? You had mentioned that Veja doesn't invest in marketing so that you can spend your resources on the supply chain itself. How do you deal with and yet most consumers probably have never heard of regenerative agriculture? How do you deal with the consumer education piece of things?
Great question, Danielle. I think we have connected before. I'm not sure, but I'll love to. I'm not sure, but I'd love to learn more about the biodiversity solution you have. So regarding consumers, one interesting thing about Veja is that even though we have all this process and responsibility, 95% of Veja consumers doesn't have a clue about our supply chain and our sourcing initiatives. What we've done, I think, was smart, was even though we don't do ads, we don't do publicity, but we do marketing. Marketing is to have like a pretty good website, connecting with journalists. We do we don't interrupt people with ads, but we have a strong communication effort for people that can change or influence opinions. So we bring journalists to our supply chain. We walk them into the rubber trails. We show how much we're paying to producers, our contracts, and everything we do. And these journalists end up talking about Veja. So a lot of influencers like Meghan Markle, Emma Watson, they love to use Veja because of the cause. They've heard about it and they use it because they have the same cause and the same passion. And then their followers end up buying Veja. So I don't think we have a direct solution. What is important to mention is that, first of all, you need to be fashionable, you need to have quality, you need to have design, and then maybe the fifth or the sixth will be like sustainability, right? So if you just focus on sustainability, we won't have a market for that. So we need to achieve all these major elements. You need to have price, you need to achieve all these elements, and by the way, be sustainable if you want to get consumers' attention. I think another factor I want to mention is that I believe fast fashion is changing a bit. I think one of the good things about this pandemic is that we realized that the economy stopped because we just stopped buying things that are not vital for our lives, right? Because we're still buying food, we're still buying the things that are important. When we stop to buy the things that are not important, all the economy got in collapse. And then for the fashion, a lot of people realize that the reselling, the secondhand market, and all these new business model are growing a lot, and it's super interesting and cool. It's an amazing experience. So there's this data that in a few years, not sure how many, but the resale market will be larger than the fast fashion market. And I think that's a super insightful and super important, and an opportunity who wants to get into the fashion industry with a new business model that's not the same fast fashion, because I think this is going to lose space and I hopefully become obsolete in the future.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? I've got one for you, Danielle. Can you tell us a little bit about your biodiversity acoustic monitoring?
Sure thing. Yeah, so all vocalizing animals, birds, bats, insects, mammals, fish, they have distinct acoustic signatures. that we can detect in real time using AI methods, just like Facebook detects our faces. We can use the same kind of deep learning methods to detect animal sounds. And so using a cheap recorder, you can inventory the animals in surrounding footprint in real time. So it's a really valuable method to kind of complement what we can see from space about change. Happy to elaborate to whomever might be interested. My email is in the chat box there.
Super interesting. What about the silence by the like fungi, maybe trees?
Oh, so yeah, we're only sensitive to the component of the community that vocalizes. So animals, principally.
Super cool.
Great. We still have 12 minutes left, so plenty of questions. We've had an unusually large turnout for the call, so I know there's a lot of interest, people. Don't be shy.
I'd like to jump in, Jonah.
Go for it. Lars, then Joyful.
Thank you, Beto. It's a truly amazing story. It's really fascinating. I learned a lot. And of course, the fashion industry has huge impact. What we have tried to do is, affect like leather consumption, for instance, with H&M and stuff like that. But what you signal is, in a sense, much more impactful if it can be done at scale, as you say. If they really start using other types of fibers, etc. So it is not clear to me if you see any particular opportunity or possibility or potential in one or two of those fibers that are sort of close to possible breakthrough to be used in large scale. And also if you have thought about sourcing, once something is used in a large scale, then there is also a massive sort of uptake of the raw material, which in itself can be harmful. So how to do large-scale sustainable sourcing?
Thank you, Lars, for the question. Regarding the first one, our approach, and I feel many brands are doing this, is to moving from like a binary material, like they used to have just leather and cotton, right? To have a huge diversity of materials. So I wouldn't say there is like one next fiber that will be like a breakthrough, but I feel that the strategy of having different types of material in your portfolio might be the smartest strategy right now. For many reasons, like we're still using leather, and there right now, the leather market is crazy in Brazil. So the prices are doubling. If you have a product selling around the globe and your major raw material, most expensive raw material is doubling the price, it's affecting all the supply chain, right? So we're finding alternatives for leather. But just to give you a straightforward answer, I feel that the alternatives for leather that are using any type of biomass, that's going to have a huge scale because they have collaboration with the major chemical industries. For example, Dow, Stahl probably it's, I think it's from Europe. So all these major chemical companies, they are trying to solve the alternative for leather. And it's super important because some people that they're super fascinated about sustainable fashion, sometimes they keep into the artisanal modules, but you need to connect and dialogue with the industry, right? So if this chemical industry is jumping in to solve that, Braskem, it's other huge industry in Brazil, they're replacing the socials with other renewable materials. Where these companies are betting, I think it's an interesting one. So I would say alternative for leather using biomass. And regarding the sourcing question, one thing that we try to do, Lars, is to have a positive impact throughout the supply chain. So the work we are doing with Wild Rubber, we are compensating these people with two major things. We're doing carbon credits So we are using the REDD+ methodology from the UN. So it's avoided deforestation, and then they get paid because of that. And we're paying a conservation bonuses. We're using a satellite image. Not sure if I have time, but I can share. I have it open here to show you guys. Can I share, Jonah?
Go for it.
It's a podcast, right? But in
Oh, just be fast because we have 2 more questions.
okay, so I'll share later. So this
Okay.
platform, it's a monitoring system. We use the same system that the Brazilian Federal Institute used to monitoring. And then the producers that have low deforestation, they get more bonuses. And then we're using the carbon credit as an input, we call it insetting, into our supply chain. So it's providing a positive impact and offsetting our impact as a whole within the supply chain. So you can have as large as possible supply chain as long as you are having a positive or trying to have a positive impact, distributing income, sequestering carbon, and so on.
Great. Joyful, you're up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joyful. I am so happy to have listened to this. Thank you so much, Jonah, for letting me in and for sending the invite. I think Nonette's not here, and I've brought in a bunch of other people in here. It's so wonderful to listen. I've been working with many other people on a project with one of my partner called Thingy. And Thingy, our mission is to collect and share a simple moment of interaction. And so the simple moment of interaction that we have with our everyday tools. And if we could say our clothes or fashion itself as a tool of expression, right? So we just start as a base of wearing a shirt or wearing a hat. And how does that hat make you feel? How does that shirt make you feel? Danielle, you were asking, how do we, actually, I'm not sure if someone was asking, like, how do we get the consumers to be able to think differently on how they are reacting with the material themselves? And then you were saying, well, the material actually goes beyond the physical, it actually enters vibration of sound, right? So this project is called Thingy, and our focus is to be able to collect moments that people are having with clothes that they're wearing or their home or any material that they have around. And so I would love it to share with you because it goes back to how do we measure like this simplest moment that someone has with, I don't know, like mine, this throw that I'm wearing is from a collective humanity, and it's called the joyful throw. Like I wear this when I want to feel the most joy, right? And so, and all my friends, when they see me, they know exactly what this represents. And so it's being able to narrow down on not only consuming, but knowing the emotion that is invoked by the consumption or by the thing that I have. And so I would love to invite you all to share even just like your sunglasses, your hat, whatever it is at Thingy at that world. I'm sharing it right now. But thank you so much, Beto. I've added you and I'm emailing you. And Danielle, I'm going to be emailing you. And then also Peter, I'm going to be emailing you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Great. Thank you so much, Joyful. Jessica, you're up next.
Thank you, Jonah. Hi, Beto. I think I heard about you through Felipe from Renature. So I'm a huge fan of regenerative approaches. But something that I always have this huge question is about how do you guarantee sustainability with an industry like fashion industry that you said that needs so much scale to the local communities. Like I work with local associations and it's very difficult for them to be structured as an organization to provide like legal everything. So how can you manage to support local communities, guaranteeing the scalability of the industry?
Super important question, Jessica. I think there's so many challenges. First of all, it's really educating cooperatives and helping them to organize themselves. We work a lot of NGOs that be able to turn from association to cooperatives so they can have an invoice, for example, and they can do all the legal paperwork required, and most of these families cannot. So having this intermediary that is not there just because of the money, but they can help structure, that's a really important point. I don't have a lot of time, but I would say maybe the second most important is a company that has a fair trade practices. So a fair trade practices is not just paying the bonus that most certifications do, but is also having contracts. We do 3 years contract with them. So even before they planting, they already know they can sell this harvest and the next 2 harvests. That's super important. So as you mentioned, they can keep going and developing the project they have. The hard thing is that Veja, it's a luxury product. We don't need to pay the commodity price. We have a value added. So I think we need to bring more these type of companies and get sustainability more fashion. So these type of companies that can pay extra for these materials and are able to tell the story to connect together with these families. We say that they need to have an agricultural budget. Most of these companies, they just neglect or use third parties to do the work. The companies, even it's like, I think Caring is doing a beautiful work. They are really engaged in working with biodiversity and so on, but they need to go into the field, be closer with these people and providing the security they have. Just another thing to mention, Jessica, you might have seen the Innovation Forum report about fashion and smallholder farmers. Super interesting report. They talk about all these challenges from cooperatives to having this type of brands, educating them financially, how can get a loan, providing microcredits and other important challenges. Thanks for the question.
If somebody wants to paste the website of that Innovation Forum report, please do so. And Beto, if you would like to paste your email address, I have a feeling some people may like to follow up with you who
Sure.
might not use LinkedIn. We are at the top of the hour. We still have a minute left in case anyone has a last minute question.
Fiona had a question over there in the chat.
Fiona, do you want to come online and ask?
I can answer John's question.
Okay, go for it.
So John, with the leather, it's pretty much, we use native fields. We use a biome in the south of Brazil called Pampa. So when you have a grass taller than 12 centimeters, you have more carbon sequestration than enteric emission from the cattle. So we don't use the cattle in confinement. They are like, there's no overgrazing and so on. So we can measure that through LCAs, life cycle assessment. And you can make sure, of course, with the data that you are sequestering more carbon, providing benefits impact into the farm industry. And then you have also the tanneries, all the other instances that need to measure. That's what we're doing in the farm stage.
Interesting. So it's all kind of accounted for in the ranching area where the cows are raised?
There's a lot of content around regenerative agriculture or cattle. The Savory Institute is the one most known. It has a really cool TED Talk, but it's mostly the practices around rotational grazing, no overgrazing. When you do that in a measure, you can have a climate positive environment.
Ah, very cool. If you have anything you could post in the chat or I can connect with you too, I'd love to learn more about that.
Of course. I'm writing down Savory Institute.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Savory. It sounds good. All right. Thank you, Vito.
Of course.
Thank you, everybody. We're now at the top of the hour. We're converting over to unstructured time, which is where most of the people leave, but some people stay on. I leave the chat room open for people to continue copying down website links and things like that. Beto, thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to stay around if you would like. It's been a very enlightening experience.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Pleasure to share my story business. Happy to connect.
Great. Beto, if you did post your email, I didn't see it. I think maybe you possibly posted it to one person who sent you a private message.
I posted at 4:59.
Okay.
If that helps. I stay maybe 5-10 more minutes if I just want to read all the messages.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Joyful, I love it, the project. It's so important to have, because I think mostly the stories people are telling and sharing, I feel it's one of the most important things. They need to be able to own the products, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're selling, I mean, we sell emotion, humans, we sell emotions. We are storytellers, and we've sold story through sound. We've sold stories to visuals. We've stories to taste, all of our senses. And now, because of COVID, everyone, at least maybe I should speak for myself, I feel more and more aligned to knowing which emotions I'm longing to balance, which emotions I'm longing to bring in, which emotions I'm longing to send out, and even not only emotions, but also energy, right? That goes with it. And so from the plant to the body, from the body to the plant, right? And everything else. So I'm so excited to learn more about your work.
Jeff, sorry to interrupt. Have you tried ayahuasca before?
No,
I'm talking serious.
I live in ayahuasca land.
I did it a few times and it's so powerful. It's exactly the feeling, but you go to like an extra level of feelings. It's super good. If you're connected with nature, and I think you love it.
Yeah, well, I grew up in 9 different countries in East and Southern Africa. And so I grew up in Rwanda, which was in the garden. And so the whole program of my belonging is being with plants and being in the forest and being with trees. But I've not yet been in South America, but I am excited for the next few years to dive there. Actually, Betty is on right now. She is Betty, you could come out if you want to, but Betty, I'm working with Betty in Chiapas, Mexico, to really understand how to communicate the colors from the Mayans in Chiapas. Like, we just want to communicate color. We don't want to even have words. We just want to have colors. Devin is on too. We are trying to figure out the strategy. How do we get artisans to be able to communicate also those emotions right away? Brands, not just only telling a story, but brand being the story. And then also Francesca is on too. And Francesca has been doing some really great work with one of my dearest friend, Manale, and to be able to really think about the diversity of ideology around plants and medicine, but mostly plants, gardens in Ethiopia and in Somalia and all the way south to Rwanda, because we have such an incredible biodiversity that no one will know about it until you're in a desert, you look at some little, plant, and this plant, when the sun comes out, it just pops. And then when the sun goes down, it hides, and so there's so much life around us. And I feel like that's why I say I live in ayahuasca land. Everything is there. But I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the kind words.
Absolutely. And I'm happy. I'll connect you offline to share a little about Thingy, and Jonah as well. I'll share with you both. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Joyful, could you talk a little bit about Thingy right now if you had a few minutes?
Yes, actually, is it better? I think it'd be really better if I share with you. Can I share with you on a screen?
Sure.
Okay. For those who are staying, let's see.
Checking it out right now. I can see like the forms and everything.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me just close all these things that I have open.
And Beto, thanks again. I think I said Vito on accident at the end there, but
it's okay, John. In the US, most of people call me Vito because the E sound is just like it. Yeah. But don't worry about it.
Okay, my screens are quite a bit messed, but so this is Thingy. My partner Ramiro is not here to be able to share it, but he is the mastermind. I am the community person who's gathering all of us to come and play and to organize and to share. I love sharing. So Thingy, we have, our mission is, of course, to capture, organize, and share creative way of being to foster belonging. So creative way of being is we were interacting with that because we don't want to say ritual, because I feel like some people get really scared when you say the word ritual and they want to run away. So creative way of being it's more of like ritual. Other places you can even say ritual. It would seem like a voodoo or something like that. And so we have the 3 places that you can be able to connect with us. You can share a thingy, you can explore, and you could join our community. And so what I would like to show you today is the platform itself that we have been working on for months. And we did our best to not ask for any money, to just see how far we can go with just using platforms. So it's running on a lot of platforms, sometimes takes quite a while. But here you are. If you dive right in, you get these, call them thingy cards. And so they're like tarot cards, but but for a moment of interaction. I probably, let me see if Devin is still here. Devin, are you still here by any chance? Do you want to talk about your card, or should I just go ahead? You know what, even better, I'll talk about my cards. It's much better to talk about my cards. So one of my card as a simple is this one. So one of my card is listening to the ocean. You know, not that many people get a chance to be by the ocean. What is it that you need? You need a conch shell. How long is it gonna take you? Up to 0 to 5 minutes. You can do it intuitively. My intention is to hear the sound and the gentle humming of the ocean. Actions only takes 3 steps. You know, find a quiet spot, hold the conch shell near your ear, hear the sound gently, the gentle humming ocean. The most beautiful part of this platform is it's right here also in the background, but you know, you have to really want to read it. But also my favorite part is the emotional component. So let's say hope. So when we press on hope, we have we have all these different cards that are able to bring you a sense of hope. So if you are looking for sense of hope, go no farther, just find a card and then you take the action. So you could find a sense of hope in understanding your original clothes and picking a piece of nature or quotes. And so let me go back here. So you could also search based on emotions. So however you want to feel, you could come here. Let's see, say joy. So if you click joy, you have all these different resonating cards that are followed by joy. And so I hope that explains a little bit, but right now we are partnering with the different brands to be able to really understand how they want to bring themselves forward. So
that's really
beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, John, and thanks, Subento.
You know,
thank you so much.
I know, like the Yale Institute for Emotional Science, they do a lot of like trying to categorize emotions, and I've read some about a bit of it. And it's always difficult to, well, not always, but it can be difficult to kind of tie what your current emotional state is to words or to like in essence. And it seems like this would be a good way to do that. You know, like yes. if I feel a certain way and I type into thingy or something, it could pop back with some very visceral kinds of descriptors and ideas for how I actually feel. So I like that.
Absolutely, but also it could go the other way around. So for example, yesterday, my masseuse told me, she said, oh, every morning when I wake up, I ask my daughters like right away, what is your morning dance? What is your morning moves? And I was like, what is the morning moves? Like, I just want them to move around. That's the only time I could interact with them without talking to them. And so that becomes a morning move. That is a moment of a connection point. That is a moment of joy. That is a moment of really an understanding, right? But if that moment is not captured, it's lost, right? So we are encouraging everyone, each one of us, to capture those moments, but also that moment to go with a particular type of object, because the things themselves, we are things sometimes. And that thing, and so then I said, is there a particular song you do, something you do? And she's like, no, I just get my coffee, and when they come, I was like, okay, then we're gonna use coffee to be able to connect to the morning move. So she's gonna create her card today within that, but now I really want to do it. And then she was like, wow, I did not know that was interesting. I was like, is there another thing that you do? And she was like, I wake up in the morning and I just hold myself and I say, hello heart, just hello heart, what do you want today? Like, not me, hello heart. And then I thought, okay, so what can we do to be able to attach that moment to something? And so she's still coming up with an object that she's going to be using. But it's really great. So, but imagine if every plant that we're interacting with, there is a particular type of emotion, and there's a particular type of even a moment or grouping. And then also how that it resonates to the material itself. That will be a library of like emotion expansion. And so that's what we are working on. And so I'm getting in every meeting to invite everyone to come and share.
That's super beautiful. Jennifer, I have to go, but I want to tell the last thing, which I mentioned ayahuasca before, but that's one of the ayahuasca plants. It's called chacrona or yacruna in Spanish, and it has a beautiful seed, and they do a lot of artisanal work with these seeds because it has the power, like they call it. So I think it's not about selling the product itself, but maybe these fibers might have an extra element that can help you with that emotion, right?
Absolutely. And where are you based now before you leave?
I'm in São Paulo right now.
São Paulo. Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, I'll come over. Maybe.
I'm going to shoot you a note too and connect, because in a different life, I was looking at a textile recycling company and explored some options around some technology out of a US national laboratory. I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on the closed economy and how that relates to your work. But
let's connect, John, for sure. You got my email?
I think I do. It's in the chat, right? And
yes.
Yeah.
It's beto@veja.fr.
Okay. I will.
Jonah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, Beto. All right.